back onto the half-mile oval at Kaukauna. One thing is clear. These guys are red hot. Lightning does strike twice. Last week, Mike Miller posted his second ASA win in '96 following a 15-year drought. Kevin Sawinski surprised everyone with back-to-back wins at Anderson and Milwaukee, elevating this rookie to veteran status. Wisconsin International Raceway will provide the next round of fireworks in the battle for the championship. Fewer than 30 points separate the top 3 drivers with 6 races to go. Strap yourselves in, it's gonna be wild. Welcome to Wisconsin International Raceway and the Tournament of Speed. We're in Appleton, Wisconsin, just outside of Kaukauna, Wisconsin, here at Wisconsin International Raceway. Hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Shaheen, and welcome to Wisconsin International Raceway. Jim Trado joins me, as always, here in our live coverage of prime coverage of the American Speed Association. And, Jim, this racetrack here is a little bit unique.
Very unique in its shape. There's a dogleg on the front straightaway. It's bigger than a half mile, and they groove off of turn number 4, a very tight corners here. Groove off of turn 4 all the way out to the fence, then down to the inside, down the front stretch.
Now, we're going to have a huge points chase going on here through the second half of this season. It's been real interesting. Take a look at the point standings after Milwaukee. This was just 2 weeks ago.
Scott Hansen had a 29-point lead on Gary St. Amant. Bob Seneker sat in 3rd, and Tony Raines back in 4th. Very tight battle shaping up heading into Minnesota.
At Minnesota, as you can see, it changed over. Gary St. Amant just 1 point now in front of Scott Hansen. You can see Raines and Seneker battling as well. So this points chase that is developing is really getting to be interesting. Now remember, there are points available for qualifying as well. 5 points if you get the pole, 1 point back to 5th. And points, of course, distributed in between 1st and 5th. So, did anybody get points here in qualifying yesterday? Let's go down to Dave Burns, our pit reporter here in our prime coverage of the American Speed Association, to find out.
Ralph, Gary St. Amant certainly did not. He will start back in row number 5 on the inside, actually row number 6 in the 11th position. Scott Hansen didn't do much better. He qualified 15th today, and also Tony Raines qualified 12th, so none of the top 3 guys picked up any points. The front 2 rows are made up of people with a lot of experience at Wisconsin International Raceway. Matt Kenseth in the 08, Steve Holshausen in the 5 car, Kevin Sawinski in the number 1 Brown and Sharp Chevrolet, and the pole sitter Mike Miller, who's locked in a battle in the points chase down in 8th place. Now he's battling with Joe Nutt and Kevin Sawinski for that middle of the pack run in the top 10. He'd like to be in the top 5 though, and perhaps today here at Kaukauna. Now this place is shaped so funny, Mike. You've had a lot of laps here. How important is experience going to be for you here at Kaukauna?
Well, I think that the AFC 1000 Car Cop Wagner-powered Pontiac is going to do okay today because of previous experience. We changed 3 springs. We weren't real happy with the car after qualifying, although it was on the pole. We changed 3 springs to try to make the car a little more comfortable. Hopefully we went the right direction.
Well, Mike Miller's best finish ever here at Kaukauna in a non-ASA race was called a Red, White, and Blue Series race. He qualified on the pole and finished 2nd. He would like to improve that by 1 position today.
That Red, White, and Blue Series, of course, legendary up here in the area of Kaukauna. Now let's show you the top 10 in points, because there's a lot of points chasing going on all the way through this field, including Dave Sensiba, who's trying to see if he can't move his way up inside that top 4.
And Tony Raines with his podium finish last week within 6 positions of the point lead. Bob Seneker in 4th, Sensiba, as you mentioned, in 5th position, 112 back.
Back behind them in the back half of the top 10, Kevin Sawinski pretty much has the Pat Shaw Rookie of the Year wrapped up at this point.
Mike Miller and Brad Lundy locked in there, very much a swing throughout the season, and Tony Roper has now moved ahead of Mike Eddy to 10th in points.
One name that I was just going to say you're not going to see there is Mike Eddy, but Mike will have a lot to do with the manufacturer standings, and what a battle we have here.
With the 1-2-3 Pontiac sweep last weekend at Minnesota State Fair, they have now climbed to tie Ford. Heading into the final stretch of the season here, it's tied, and Pontiac has enjoyed the last 2 championships. Chevrolet had the lead early on. Now it's back to Ford and Pontiac dueling it out.
All sorts of points available here today. Points for leading a lap, points for leading the most laps, and points for wherever you finish, of course. And we'll chronicle it all for you today as we go racing here at Wisconsin International Raceway. But before we can do that, we've got to start the motors. So let's go back downstairs to Dave Burns to turn them over.
I'm standing by with Ray Dietzen, who is the sales manager for U.S. Tire nearby in, I believe it's called Combined Locks, Wisconsin. Now, Ray has been a racer here before. He's been a promoter. But today, Ray, you get to do something you've never done before. Go ahead.
Drivers, start your engines.
So the American Speed Association cars have come to life. motors rumbling. And we'll go racing when we come back. The AC-Delco Challenge Series on Prime is brought to you in part by Win Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it's wins, it works. And by your GM Goodrich service dealer. We want your business. We are back to our coverage here at the American Speed Association, and a huge problem developing already in the point standings. That is Scott Hansen's number 53, and he has brought his Chevy down pit road, and it looks like they're adjusting the steering, getting the car properly squared up.
We saw Tony Roper head in there as well, so he's 10th in points. So as that point battle heats up, these guys want to make certain the cars are ready to go. By coming down pit lane, Ralph, I believe they'll have to start in the rear prior to going green if they do indeed make it back out before we get a start here.
So big problems developing for Hansen. We'll check in with Dave Burns here in a little bit and find out what the story was. Well, let's show you the grid for today's Tournament of Speed 300. There's a good look at the first two rows. Mike Miller with a new track record, and Kevin Sawinski, the hot young rookie, lined up right alongside of him. And two drivers who have spent a lot of time going around this racetrack, Steve Holzhausen and Matt Kenseth, make up row 2.
The next four cars include Carl Muscat in the net, a fifth-place qualifying run for Carl. Dave Sensiva qualifies outside of him. In the next row, Bob Seneker back up front, and Steve Carlson, who's got a million laps. That's not an exaggeration here on this racetrack.
In row 5, Joe Knotts and Tim Sauter. Knott, of course, getting his first win this season at Lancaster, and Gary St. Amant, the point leader, alongside of Tony Raines, last year's winner.
Row 7 at Ted Smokestack, coming off a runner-up career best finish a week ago. Brad Loney outside, and the pair of Pontiacs are followed in the qualifying line by Scott Hansen and Rod Wheeler. We mentioned Hansen in the pits, though. Wheeler, an Appleton, Wisconsin driver, running here at his home track.
Harold Fair and Tony Roper. Roper, by the way, has pulled back out onto the racetrack, as has Hansen. Aaron Huff and Brett Bell still looking for their first wins, make up row 10.
Row 11, Mike Eddy and Mike Garvey. Garvey in the 23 car this week. Tom Jones in his Felpro Pontiac, and Bill Baird in the Saturn Machine goes outside row 12 and 24th starting spot.
Row 13, Jack Landis and Dennis Lampman on an emotional weekend. We'll have more about that story for you in a little bit. Bob Dorsowitz and Brandon Sperling, who has been running pretty strong as of late, in row 14.
Starting 29th will be North Carolina's Randy Ruhlman and Dave Doran in his first ASA start in car number 47. Billy Turner and Dr. Yo Conley make up row 16.
The 53 car.
Rounding out the field, Cindy Peterson, the only female in the field, back out on the ASA Tour, and Carol Adamy in car 92, and the racing principal, Dave Anspaugh, in the final position. So Hansen has pulled back out onto the racetrack, and he has slotted himself back where he was.
He get it back, good.
Apparently, as has Tony Roper. Let's check in with Dave Burns for more on the Tony Roper and Scott Hansen stories.
Well, Lynn Miller's the crew chief for Scott Hansen. Lynn, it looked like a tow-out problem you were fixing?
Yeah, it was. And ASA was good enough to let us fix it before the start of the race. It was towed out pretty bad. Just got missed on the checklist this morning, and they let us fix it, pull it back in spot where we were going to normally start. So we'll be okay now, I think.
Scott wasn't even up to speed when he recognized it, so it must have been pretty bad.
Yeah, sitting right on pit lane before the start of the race, he noticed it. We checked it. They let us check it. And then they good enough to let us come and fix it before starting the race and starting out really in the back. We'll be all right now.
Okay, Scott will get back in his 15th starting position. Tony Roper's problem was an airlock of some sort in the power steering lines. They replaced that power steering pump this morning and had a little bit of an air bubble. They have topped that off, and hopefully Tony has power steering for all 300 laps.
Well, we'll know shortly as they get set to go green. If Tony goes barreling down into turn number 1, he's going to hope they got that all straightened out. Pontiac pace car is making its way out of turn 4. The field forming up nicely behind Mike Miller and Kevin Sawinski as we get set to kick off the final race of the Tournament of Speed here at Wisconsin International Raceway. We're green. Mike Miller taking over the lead. Look at Holzhausen sneaking up to the inside. Matt Kenseth trying to come along to take third, and Sawinski's kind of hung out to dry on the outside, but he's doing everything he can to to hang on, maybe even fight back for the lead. As the yellow comes out, we've got a crash down in turn 4, coming off of 4, and Mike Eddy is involved in it. Bill Baird, Tom Jones, and Randy Ruhlman. So Mike Eddy's problems continue.
Not only did Mike Eddy qualify 22nd for this race, he ended up 21st on the starting grid based on points. He starts with his pit stall in the very back stretch here of the small oval in the infield, so his disadvantage started after qualifying. Unfortunately, the black cloud continues to follow the black 88.
It is amazing the bad luck that car has had, and that driver and that team have had here in 1996. You know, they opened up the season, and big props for Dennis Lampman too. There is bodywork damage on the number 9. Let's take a look at the replay of this incident and see if we can figure out what happened. They're going to be deep in the pack there.
Aaron Huff getting in the back end of the red car there. That's Brett Bell. That causes a chain reaction. Mike Eddy and Bill Baird get together. Tom Jones, and it seemed like it was just an accordion effect off the 4th turn. That's Billy Turner's left front fender. Dennis Lampman also involved in the orange and white barricade flasher Chevrolet. There's Lampman on the outside going by, spinning Bill Baird. Brandon Sperling safely through, but you can see Ruhlman getting heavy contact from the rear by Billy Turner. Yo Conley locking up the brakes as well in the white number 3.
There's Turner's car down pit road. To finish off the story about Mike Eddy, he opened up the season getting the first ever win in the brand new Pontiac Grand Prix, a National Touring Stock Car sanctioning body at Lakeland, Florida. Looked like he was off on a roll, and another banner year for the 7-time champ, maybe winning that unprecedented 8th title. And now he's, I mean, since the very next race, he has had problems.
In the last 5 races, he has a 6th place finish at Anderson as his best finish. He's had some distributor problems.
3 weeks
He's also been involved in an accident at IRP that really knocked the wind out of his sails a little bit because he had a very fast car at that racetrack. Lost 2 laps with a flat tire very early on in the race this past spring in Toledo. So the bad luck bug is nesting in the Goodwrench pit.
One thing is, though, is they're not trying to do anything to shake it out of the ordinary. Mike, in fact, talking to him today, said, you know, all you can do is continue to work along at what you know to do and how to prepare the car and go to the racetrack and hope that your hard work and preparation will eventually kick the hex.
Racetrack, it's not been paved in about 15 to 20 years, so the racetrack surface here is rather porous. And last weekend at Minnesota State Fair, it really became a situation with tires. We'll continue to monitor that as the Goodyear Racing Eagles under these cars will show wear after 50 or 60 laps.
Well, we're back to green. Mike Miller continues to lead, and Sawinski still likes that high side.
Trying again on the outside. This racetrack is a 2-groove racetrack, but it's very hard to stay down on the bottom. The tendency is to sweep up, and now Sawinski sweeps on past into turn number 1. Half of the crowd goes nuts for Kevin Sawinski. He brought a lot of fans here today.
That is not an easy way to pass here. Yes, it is a 2-groove racetrack, but making the pass on the outside like that, especially through 1 and 2, is not an easy pass. Could be a sign of things to come from Kevin Sawinski here today. That round and sharp Chevy number 1 has been pretty stout most of the season. Of course, this rookie picking up back-to-back wins, and Anderson and Milwaukee looking awfully, awfully tough.
Sawinski in his rookie run is defending Artco Series champion, which runs here at this racetrack 3 to 4 times a year, depending on the series schedule. So he has laps here in recent history. Mike Miller competed here for many years against the likes of Dick Trickle in the 70s and early 80s prior to his moving to Georgia. And now we see the experience of Holtzhausen pressure on the mind as he goes to the outside of Mike Miller.
Well, while these guys continue to battle up front for the lead, good things for them, but bad things for Dennis Lampman. Dave?
Yeah, Lampman is actually okay for right now. I talked with Jimmy Lampman, his crew chief, and he says he believes the damage to only be on the body. His car looks just about as bad as, well, actually not as bad as Billy Turner's. Turner is also okay. And, of course, other guys that spun, Mike Eddy, Tom Jones, and Bill Baird, all have reported that they're okay for right now. So no real suspension damage for anybody in the back of the pack.
As we mentioned at the beginning of the show, Dennis, emotionally drained this weekend. His father, Pops, passing away earlier this week. The entire ASA family, television crew, and racers, and all
sympathies and condolences to the entire Lindman family. We will certainly miss Pops from the racetrack. There's a good battle brewing back in the pack. That's Carl Muscotton in the 8, Dave Sensma in the 4, the Bluebird, Bob Seneker in the 48 of Joe Knott. That fight is raging on for 5th. Joe Knott, that red 48, picking up his first career ASA victory in Buffalo, New York, just earlier this summer. And Bob Seneker with the most victories on the tour so far this year with 3.
Seneker is a factor here at Kaukauna. He's a very quick and very smooth driver, and as the race goes on, we found out last year Tony Raines won the race with road race brakes. Braking into these turns, they're very tight. Getting in off these long straightaways, it's very important to keep the brakes underneath you. Bob Seneker had brake problems in 2 consecutive races earlier this year. I would think the JR Automation Lane Automotive Ford has that problem corrected, so Seneker will be a factor today. Seneker keeps the fenders on.
Seneker is a factor everywhere, isn't he? It is unbelievable. Already a couple of cars going down a lap, including the 37 there. Dave Anspaugh, Randy Ruhlman's 49 is down a lap, and Carroll Adamy had problems at the beginning in the 92. They had trouble getting that one started.
Looks like Billy Turner now has developed an overheating problem as he's just ahead of this battle.
That would, of course, be a result of that incident early on. Now, these two drivers, it would not surprise me at all to watch these two check out. Kevin Sawinski and Steve Holzhausen, 2 drivers who put in a lot of laps here. In fact, Sawinski came out and ran the Arco race last night here at Wisconsin International. Struggled a little bit in that, but certainly not a driver who is unused to driving here. Now there's Turner's 58 headed down pit road, and quite possibly it looks like maybe his day will be over. Back up front. That 5 car is going to be a spoiler, I think, for the rest of the season. He is not, if you're just watching your first American Speed Association telecast of the 96 season, Steve Holzhausen had raced sporadically in the early stages of the year, but now that he has moved in behind the wheel of the 5, replacing Dennis Berry a handful of weeks ago, he has really been a factor picking up a win, and it looks like he could get 1 or 2 more victories before the season is out. And Jim, that's not the kind of thing that some of these points guys want.
Indeed, it's only his 7th ASA start of the season. He's 27th in points, but as you mentioned, he takes away a valuable chunk for these guys running every week. This is the 15th of 20 races here on the AC-Delco Challenge Series. And he has another one of those drivers that has many laps here on this racetrack. The Haas Lubricator Ford, that team being put together with car owners Don Finetti and Rick Scalzo combining their efforts. Their teams individually have run a lot of laps here.
Bob Dorswood's about to go down a lap to the leader, Kevin Sawinski. We're coming back to WIR for more than Tournament of Speed 300 right after this here on Prime. We're back to Wisconsin International Raceway. As you take a look at Kevin Sawinski and the number 5 of Steve Holzhausen working around the outside of Dave Anspaugh. Right now, Sawinski has about a half a second lead over the 5 car, and at this point, he is not opening up a bigger gap than that. I think Holzhausen's comfortable running just behind him like this in the early stages. The thing to take note of is we are already working lap 26 of the scheduled 300 here. Kevin told us earlier today that anytime after about lap 40, pit stops will become quite possible. Normally you would think you could go easily 100 laps at ASA car. That's usually what we see, but because of this racetrack, every 40 laps, these teams are going, oh, and we got a spinner in turn 1. Ted Smokestad, the Super America car going around, and it looks like everybody's going to avoid him. You know, it looked like maybe he just lost him. We'll have to take a look at the replay and see. Well, he goes right through the AC-Delco side.
It's a decreasing radius corner. It gets tighter as you get through turns 1 and 2. You have to get the banking just right. There's a yellow line painted on this racetrack by none other than Scott Hansen, trying to provide the drivers with the racing line. The yellow line that goes around the entire big half mile here is not right down on the bottom of the racetrack. Smokestad may have gotten down in turns 1 and 2. It actually flattens out on the apron, and the drivers have to go right above that apron area, and I think Ted might have gotten down onto that and got it loose. Well, coming off his career best second place finish. And
here's a look at it. At this point, you can see he is already around, but I didn't see anybody getting into him. It looked like he pretty much just shotgun and they're a little hot on his own, which could very well be the case.
That stripe, as you see Smokestead writing it, that stripe in the middle of the racetrack is that yellow line I was telling you about. That's where they suggest the left side tires go for the racing groove.
He did get 2 signs.
That's good, as long as he sees Super America, and then he missed the Super America sign up in turn 2.
Well, while they line them back up, we're going to take a quick break from Wisconsin International Raceway here in Kaukauna, Wisconsin. Billy Turner still getting work on his 58. We'll be back. Welcome back to Kaukauna, Wisconsin, Wisconsin International Raceway, where Billy Turner is having some problems with some overheating. The number 58.
Continued to shed body panels off of there. They had the right front fender still on the car when he sent back out last time. That went flapping as the fiberglass bodywork is bolted and pop riveted to these machines. It was flapping in the breeze as they came back in, so I think ASA is going to make sure they have the rest of the body fastened down on that Santa Fe Chevrolet.
Right now, you're taking a look at the top 3 is Kevin Sawinski, Steve Holshausen, and then Matt Kenseth, the 37, the yellow and green cars, laps down. And the green flag waves, and Sawinski gets a good jump.
These 2 leaders checked out on Matt Kenseth, but now Kenseth battling back.
We got him turned around, coming out of turn 2.
Bob
Dorsiewicz is going to stack up a bunch. We've got a whole host of cars in there, including Rod Wheeler in the 01, Mike Garvey's 23, Aaron Huff in the 86, the 38 of Cindy Peterson, the 56 of, you can only imagine, Brett Bell. If you've watched this tour long enough, you will know the terrible luck he has. And it's been him once again. And Steve Carlson in the 2 car is the one that is directly T-boning him right there.
Well, that Trop Arctic Pontiac got up in the air as well, and Dorstwitz getting around. It looked like he and Mike Miller made contact, and that really, there was nowhere to go for the rest of the field, Ralph. Everybody was right in the racing line, 2 by 2, and that's right where Dorstwitz's car stopped.
So those 2 cars severely damaged. You can see the 25 definitely doesn't look like it's going anywhere, and I don't think even if Carlson could get away from Dorstwitz, he'd be able to go anywhere. Both those cars look like they're going to need a record. Aaron Huff is on pit road. They're going to work on trying to change the right side tires on that car. Seneker was involved. He is in. Joe Knott was involved. He is in. He is pitted just in front of Seneker. So a lot of activity down there, Dave.
Yeah, and Seneker's crew is going to that left front side. They're going to try and see if they can detect any suspension damage. At this point, they're just pulling off the fiberglass, and they're going to try to get Bob back out there, of course, without losing a lap. It doesn't look bad from here. I don't know if your angle, you can pick up anything askew there, but Seneker is now out of here. Joe Knott, they continue to work on the right rear of that car. That's where he sustained the most damage, and we'll go and check on some of the other guys as they come in as well.
Well, you see one of the ASA officials getting an earful.
Bob Dorstwitz is the driver in the black and white uniform. John Janik, the ASA tech director, talking over to the driver. Carlson's still in the number 2. Perhaps he's going to see if he can get back to the pits by staying in the car.
There's a look at Joe Knott's car as they go to work on the backside of that car. We also see Brett Bell's car is still on pit road. Mike Garvey is about to bring out the number 23. He is missing the majority of the right front corner of that car, and Brett Bell now driving a modified. Let's take a look at it again. Watch the red and white car at the top of the screen. That's where it all begins.
Mike Miller gets into Bob Dorstwitz. They make contact. Dorstwitz spins, and look at how bottlenecked and jammed it is. 3-4 wide. Gary St. Amant there showing his number 7 right to the side of us. He squeaks through there as Dave Onspaw was on the inside. And St. Amant, boy, did he luck out there or what? Point leader just barely getting through that. He stops right behind Carlson's car and puts it in reverse.
And another look at it.
Dorstwitz spun to the bottom. Here comes the entire field. Joe Knott sideways there, getting tagged by Cindy Peterson and hits Dorstwitz, knocking the rear end out of that 25 lane automotive Chevy. And the rest of the field threading their way through, and really only one place to go was down low after all the other cars were in there, including Brad Loney, who's just now peeling away to the left there.
A lot of cars suffering some form of damage in that incident.
Keep your eye on where Gary St. Amant goes in that black number 7.
There goes Loney around. He got the other with Garvey.
Brett Bell on the fence.
Jack Landis escapes to the outside. unfortunately, you really couldn't see Carlson's car get airborne, but that number 2 really, there you get a good idea of Carlson getting up in the air. You can see almost the entire car at one point or another was completely airborne. Fortunately, not at a high rate of speed.
Carlson in his 3rd start of the year for car owner Jim Daly out of Minnesota. Bob Seneca 4th in points. Every lap counts here for the Bluebird.
And Gary St. Amant coming in to get more repairs done to the Wins Ford number 7, the points leader. It's one thing he did not need because Scott Hansen has not suffered any body damage. We saw Hansen pitting early to get that toe problem fixed, but they've got that fixed, and Hansen could be in a great shape to put a lot of points up on Gary today.
And what's critical here, without the right front fender, Gary St. Amant, when he's passing cars later in this race, will not have that cushion. Now, I'm not saying he's going to run into anybody, but if you need to nudge a driver to get by for a position, this racetrack notoriously is very hard to pass on. If St. Amant goes to the inside of a fellow competitor, he has to be extra cautious because there's no right front body work to rub or lean on the guy as you go by.
Hey, it is short track stock car racing. If you're afraid to lean on the guy next door to you, probably shouldn't enter.
But I think they're going to try to salvage as much of that front nose cone as they can.
There's Steve Carlson out of the number 2, surveying the damage on the Trop Arctic back entry. Well, we've got more cleanup to do here. What a wild beginning to our prime coverage of the Tournament of Speed 300 from Kaukauna. Folks here in the Kaukauna area enjoying the Tournament of Speed 300 here at Wisconsin International Raceway. We're under yellow if you just joined us. Working lap 40. And this might change the pit strategy a little bit, Jim, because we talked about anything after lap 40. A lot of the teams are going to start thinking about what do we want to do about tires and so forth. But with so many of the early laps here being run under yellow, that's really going to shake things up in how they map out those pit stops today.
This is the 3rd caution on the afternoon. We mentioned how porous the surface is. These cars are able to cool down. The tires are cooled down. They can save some fuel under caution laps. We see the work continuing there on the St. Louis Gear 23 of Mike Garvey. And it's unfortunate for these guys. They've never seen this racetrack, but looking forward to a good run today. But as you mentioned, a lot of cars are already down pit lane once. The leaders have yet to pit, however.
Back to green. This time everything goes clear as we go racing down to turn number 3. Sawinski, Holtzhausen, and Kenseth, the top 3. Right behind him, Mike Miller, Scott Hansen, Tony Raines, Carl Muscat, and Mike Eddy marching his way up through the field. He is already up to 8th after starting 21st. That wreck really helped him out. He picked up some 10 spots.
He had a close scare early on, lap number 2 off of turn 4. He was very slow coming off of that turn after a number of cars got turned around, but he's certainly gathered it back in and passed a number of cars under green. 3 cautions this afternoon.
One thing you need to note about Mike Eddy, yes, he has had problems with the distributors over the last 3 races. They have taken him out. However, the car has been fast. It's not like he has been off on his setups. It just has not been a reliable race car. If he gets the reliability fixed here today, the 88 is definitely going to be a contender for a win here today.
Our pole sitter, Mike Miller, coming down the backstretch, has some right front body damage just ahead of this battle. There's Sensiva and Mike Eddy. You see the car cop Pontiac right there. The right front begins to flap, and he pulled way down, letting Tony Raines go by just 1 lap ago down the front stretch here.
Interesting to note, the engine builder that handles Mike Eddy's motors builds the same motors for Mike Miller, Wagner Engineering. Mike, on the other hand, Mike Miller has had no problems. In fact, he's had a career best ever season. The biggest difference, they say, is that Mike runs his engine based on the Buick, and Mike Miller's is based on the Chevy.
Most of the GM products here in ASA run a Buick V6, which has been the staple, shall I say, as Tony Raines there is running Wagner power plants that have been updated many times over the last 3 seasons, which is again a Buick V6.
Back up front to the leaders, Sawinski. Half a second advantage over Holtzhausen. So 0.3 of a second back behind Holtzhausen. You'll find Matt Kenseth. And this, I think, is going to be the dogfight the majority of the day. Those two drivers well within the yellow line painted by Hands. It'll be interesting to see how those drivers run according to that line. Well, Chris Bradley's had his hands full with the 48 today, Dave.
Well, we'll ask Chris about Joe's trials out there so far. It looks like body damage, but then you went to opposite corners for the tires. What's that all about?
Well, we got hit in the right rear and the left front, and those are the two tires that we need to change just to make sure we're going to be okay. We're hoping it's just body damage. It's hard to say right now. We didn't lift the hood, but we'll see how it feels here and talk to him a minute and then make some changes on yellows if we need to.
What's Joe saying right now about the handling?
He hasn't said anything since we went green. I'll ask him when I get back up here on my toolbox, but I think it looks okay.
Okay, Joe Knott is one of the Fords back there running with Gary St. Amant and Bob Sineker. Both Sineker and St. Amant report only superficial damage at this point. Obviously, they're watching that very closely.
Joe currently running around in 20th position, one lap down. And the interesting thing about Sineker, he told me today that he is running a flat track setup.
The racetrack, most of the racetrack here is absolutely flat. The straightaways are the longest portion of the racetrack. No pun intended, but on the backstretch, there is a drag strip off the backstretch. And as long as these straightaways are, I would think your corner speeds going in and coming off are critical, but I think the majority of the time you're on a flat track.
Oh, and Dave Anspaugh is around, and Joe Knott is not a lap down. I said he was a lap down. He is not a lap down. But a flat track setup as we continue to go racing here. I thought we would see the yellow with Anspaugh in the infield.
Now we go yellow.
There it is. Okay, I guess they were waiting to see if he could pull off onto the into the pit road area. He does so now, but it's too late. The yellow has already come out. Once again, the fourth one of the day. This one coming out on lap 53. Well, Dave's going to check out the grass in the infield as well.
This is the second ASA veteran to spin in turns 1 and 2. We mentioned how tricky this racetrack is. It's not a compound banking, but it's very flat on the very inside of turns 1 and 2. If you get underneath the driver, you have to drive up the racetrack and diamond off the turn, while the driver on the outside groove has a little bit more momentum built up because the banking will hold the car on the outside line. So that'll be critical this afternoon. We saw two drivers already find problems entering turns 1 and 2 and not being able to get off turn number 2 as they like. Ted Smokestad spinning earlier. Now Dave Anspaugh bringing out the fourth caution.
So the Sturgis Middle School entry into the infield, as we watched him, well, you can see how far down he was. There was just nowhere to go. He was trying to give the other guys room and just ran out of room.
To Dave's credit, stayed way on the bottom, and it did cost him as it was not able to. Wasn't able to get through the turn. We see the right front damage on that racing electronics.
As Dave would try to explain to his students and how school is a good thing to finish, and it carries on, he would probably say, as you would know by the laws of physics, I ain't gonna make it through there.
Yep.
And then he would correct me on my English, because you're not ain't gonna make it through there. You're not gonna make it through there. There's the Seneca Bluebird, and I wanted to finish off the point about the flat track setup. He said if you take a look at this racetrack, you will notice, even though they're running on the bottom, it is extremely banked in the turns. Bob says to him, the only tracks that are what he would consider high bank would be Salem, Winchester, Nashville, places like that that ASA visits or has visited in the past. Anything less than that, even I-70, he figures it more along the lines of a flat track. So he runs a softer setup in a place like this than he would on the steep banks in a place like Salem, where we'll be going in a little while later, a little later this year.
Bob now running 21st. As he saw the body damage, he did spend some time in the pits. He's still on lead lap. The Bluebird has a lot of laps, a lot of track to cover here to get back up to the front.
Hansen starting to make his way up to the backside of Kenseth. That'll be the fight for third. There you see it. Tony Raines coming right along with him in the 87 car. And Howie Leto prepared 87 should be a factor here today, but that fight up front is a good one too as they start to open up the gap.
Only 28 points separate these two drivers in the point standings after 14 events. It's Scott Hansen in second, 28 points better than Tony Raines heading into this event, so there's a race within the overall championship.
And a thing to take note of is Gary St. Amant currently runs 21st, the points leader, and Hansen running fourth. There's that points battle we've been talking about. We'll try to keep you abreast of that all afternoon here at Wisconsin International Raceway.
Matt Kenseth was about a groove and a half lower than anyone I've seen up at turn 2 that time behind the AutoCap Chevrolet. This team was the team that put Bobby Doddard behind the wheel, and he won the pole position a year ago in the inaugural visit for the AC-Delco Challenge Series. So he's got a good race car underneath him, and as I mentioned, Kenseth also a reigning and 3-time track champion right here at this racetrack.
I'll tell you right now, that 88 car is coming. Mike Eddy has gotten around Muscatine. He has pulled away from the slower car, Brett Bell, and he is starting to reel in the backside of Mike Miller, and Miller currently runs in 6th. So Mike Eddy, who started in 21st position, trying to become a factor here today to see if he can snap himself out of the funk he has been in the last few weeks. There are your leaders. Kevin Sawinski and Steve Holzhausen out front, pacing themselves and the rest of the field here at the Tournament of Speed 300 at Kaukauna. Stay with us. We're coming back for more on Prime. The racing continues here at Wisconsin International Raceway. Kaukauna, Wisconsin, the site of the Tournament of Speed 300. And you're watching Kevin Sawinski in the brown and sharp number 1 lead that Fast Ford, the number 5 of Steve Holzhausen. And again, this plays into the manufacturer's points battle that we've been talking about. The Fords looking for big points, and they can get it from Holzhausen. And look at the 88. I'm telling you, Mike Eddy's going to be a player here today. He comes around the outside of Matt Kenseth, and we've got Bill Barrett spinning in turn number 2. So the yellow is going to come out. Yellow number 5, if my math is correct.
You are correct, sir.
Well, that's one thing Dave Anspaugh would be proud of me for, getting my math straight.
Matt Kenseth, as I touted, he's the track champion here. It looks like his car is extremely tight, Ralph. He's not able to come off the turn with full speed. He's having to hold the car down, and that allowed Mike Eddy to get alongside. We'll see how this plays out. We're at lap 70, so we might see the leaders pit this time.
Let's check in with Dave Burns on the story of Carroll Adamy. And Carroll Adamy is a driver, Dave, who is getting his feet here in ASA. He's starting to show some great improvement.
Well, Carroll started out on the dirt tracks in Nebraska and points westward, I would think, of Kaukauna, Wisconsin. And Carroll, what put you out early today?
Flywheel broke. We had some problems yesterday with the distributor. We had in our last lap of qualifying, we broke the distributor, and this time we fired right up here this morning and started up here on the track, and chunk of the flywheel come off. I don't know what happened with that. We've had some bad luck here, but we're not going to quit.
Well, absolutely not. And with their sponsor, Dorothy Lynch Salad Dressing, they're going to stay in it every time that they can. Now, this is actually manufactured out in a little place called Columbus, Nebraska. Dorothy Lynch is only made in one style. It's kind of a tomato poppy seed sort of a dressing, and your announcer here has actually had some. It's very good. But the neat thing about that is that Mac Hall, the owner of Dorothy Lynch Salad Dressing, pumped a lot of money back into the community to say thank you. He built a big restaurant out of an old car dealership, and obviously he serves Dorothy Lynch, but there's also a microbrewery there. So a great place to go if we ever get out to Columbus to race. We'll want to stop by and see him at, what is the name of the cafe out there?
Gottberg Brew, it's a Duster's restaurant, but the Gottberg Brew Pub.
All right, the Gottberg Brew Pub. Make sure you stop and see it in Columbus, Nebraska.
Well, there's an interesting sight, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. The 87 of Raines and the 88 of Eddy has stayed out. Everybody else that was running up front pitted. Kenseth stayed out as well.
That's the only 3 that have not gone down pit lane at all yet are up front.
Everybody else pitted. Now, here's the reason why this gets so interesting. We've gotten reports that some 15 to 20 minutes away is the possibility of rain.
Ooh.
Now, if that is the case, and if it's moving fast, maybe it might not be a bad idea to stay out, hold on to the track position, and see what the weather does to you as we go back to green. Now, Mike Eddy had already planned on changing his pit strategy because Mike, due to his 21st starting position, is pitting on the back straightaway. And he felt that the only way to not allow that to be a disadvantage is to make up your own pit strategy and do the opposite of whatever the leaders do. Howie Leto's just a genius anyway on that 87, so he might have a trick up his.
Tony Raines leading for the 8th time in 1996. This is the 15th of 20 races on the AC-Delco Challenge Series. Next up, a weekend off. This is the final race in an 8-week run that has really tested the fortitude of these drivers. Tony Raines accelerating through the top 10. Mike Eddy suffering through some problems. Bob Seneker has weathered. He's now 4th in points as we see our race leader Tony Raines climbed within 29 points of point leader Gary St. Amant coming into this event. driver who leads a lap gets 5 points. 5 points also go to the driver leading the most laps. Last race, it was Mike Miller showing the way for the majority of the Minnesota race, the Miller Junior Draft 300 last Monday at the fairgrounds. Uh-oh, here he comes. Mr. Eddie.
Trying to get to the inside, but Rain's not going to have anything to do with it at this point in time. Let's give you an update of the top 10 right now as they have shaken through that pit stop. Rains, Eddie, Kenseth, Roper, Loney, Harold Fair, and then the 84 car of Bob Seneker. That takes you through the top 10 or the top 7. Then it's Rod Wheeler in the 01. Would be a surprise to some people, but not really at this point.
Rod Wheeler ran for the track championship, lost out the final line to Travis Wappel, and he's run here weekly for a number of years. A very strong competitor. He qualified 9th here a year ago before suffering through some engine problems, so he has experience here at ASA car as well.
Then it is Yale Conley and Bill Baird in the 26 car rounding out the top 10 at this point. This fight up front is really getting to be a good one. Tony Raines and Mike Eddy having at it, and you can see that shot right there will give you a great example of how tricky these turns are. You can see they almost pitched the car sideways, trying to get the right angle coming back up onto the back straightaway out of turn 2. Look at Mike Eddy slide the Goodrich Service Pontiac. Both these drivers working hard. It is a little hot and humid out there too, and Tony Raines loves that kind of weather. The hotter the better. Big guy, Tony Raines, strong, physical driver. Mike feeling pretty racy today himself, especially after suffering so much bad luck. Mike trying to change that, and he slides himself right up alongside of Tony Raines.
He wants it in a big way. He was sideways off of turn number 4, down the dogleg into turns 1 and 2. He's even now with Raines out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we have a new race leader if it holds.
Boy, if you like short track stock car racing, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? Sideways together as they come off the turns, and look at Kenseth coming up alongside. Everybody giving each other room, but not a lot of room. And Roper and Loney trying to get into the mix as well. 5 cars fighting for the top 5 positions.
Tony Roper pitted before the green flag dropped, Ralph, and Brad Loney did come in on lap 33 to change tires, so Roper has the same amount of tire wear as the 3 leaders, and he's almost as fast as Brad Loney with fresh right side.
And Tony Roper is another driver. Oh, and Loney gets into Roper a little bit, turns him around a little. He gathers it back up. Roper, one of those drivers who's been looking really good at different occasions over the course of the summer, and with a little bit of luck, this is a driver that will get his first win any day now. Loney, he's been right on the edge of it for the last couple of years.
Both drivers winless in ASA. Roper, a career best 4th place finish, matched this season. Yet to find the podium. Brad Loney, a very experienced driver, yet to win here in ASA competition. Continues the streak of finishing races that has a record here in the American Speed Association.
Mike Eddy has opened up a little more than half a second here over Tony Raines. Raines with his hands full of Matt Kenseth right now. We're going to take a quick break as we continue to lap here at Wisconsin International Raceway. Back to Kaukauna, Wisconsin. WIR as they call it here. Matt Kenseth, the 08, currently runs in 3rd, would love a full-time ASA drive next year. And negotiating, talking with people, and seeing if he can find something. This guy has no problems running an ASA next year. Mike Eddy, you can be sure he'll be back. 7-time champ, still looking for that unprecedented 8th. Won't happen this year, but Mike's going to be looking to take a few checkered flags before the year is out. Let's check in with Dave Burns, who's with Dennis Lamont, who's really had a rough weekend.
Yeah, and he's gone out early today, Dennis. First of all, what were the mechanical problems on the Barricade Flasher Chevy today?
I couldn't hear a word you said with all the noise, but the Barricade Flasher Turbo Blue Monte Carlo was running good. And we got a little accident at the beginning coming from the back, and it was working good. We were looking for a good day today.
Dennis, we know you've had a hard week this week. A lot of people have been affected by the death of your father. We just like to wish you the best, and we know everybody's running this race in his memory.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody that walked up to me and wished me their condolences and the cards and letters and the phone calls. Yes, we're going to miss Pops quite a bit, but he's watching over us.
Well, hopefully Dennis will be able to get a couple of top 10, top 5, and maybe even victories yet this year in the memory of his dad, who, as I understand, Jim, was known throughout the racing community, not just in Wisconsin.
World War II veteran, 71 years of age. Pops was a great guy. Sorely missed.
Yellow flag comes out again. There you see Gary St. Amant and Joe Knott, who have gotten together. And we also had Harold Fair spun around in the same corner. So those 3 cars being around and brought out the 6th yellow of the day. And it looks like Joe Knott having some problems getting the 48 going again. Now it'll be interesting to see what Mike Eddy does and Tony Raines does with this yellow flag.
And it has been 24 laps since our last caution, so the drivers we saw in pit lane trying to make their way back through may come in and change the other 2 tires.
So what will they do? They are both driving to the bottom. It looks like Raines and Eddy will take advantage of this in pit. And they do so. Now remember, Mike is forced to pit on the backstretch, so he'll take a left right there. Go around the reverse direction around the infield quarter mile here. A lot of the other drivers pitting as well. Some of them will be taking on the opposite side tires. Dave, busy down there.
Well, Mike Eddy's crew is going to the right side on his Pontiac, and there's a lot of rubber rubbed off on the right front there. They get both the front right and the rear. They get both tires on the right side on, and he is already off and away. A great pit stop for the Goodwrench crew of Mike Eddy.
Unfortunately, not good enough to beat Tony Raines' crew. Raines will pick up a position in front of Mike as they come back out onto the racetrack. Hansen took advantage of it, so did Loney, Roper, Harold Fair, who needed it due to the spin. Matt Kenseth has come in, and he is back out, as is Jim Connolly. And there's a look at the damage to the number 48, the Valvoline Ravy Ford of Joe Knott. And Joe has just come to a stop just in front of the entrance to pit road, and now he's got it rolling again. Tough afternoon for that number 48, the young driver picking up his first win a few weeks back at Lancaster Speedway, just outside of Buffalo. Doesn't look like he'll get another one here today. Stay with us. We're coming back to WIR. Far at the Tournament of Speed 300, as you see the crews going to work on Cindy Peterson's car. Everybody, just about everybody, has been dealing with some sort of body damage, mechanical problems, or
it's
something.
more like Anderson than it is like Kaukauna. Last race last year was very cleanly run.
Well, we're about to go back to green. A couple of modifieds, it looks like, will lead us there. Brett Bell leads the pack to the green, but Kevin Sawinski, car number 1, is credited with the lead position at this point. Randy Roman ducking to the bottom, and there's your leader. It is Sawinski, Miller, Holzhausen, Rod Wheeler continuing to impress here today. 0-1, credited with 4th. Dave Senspa sits in 5th. Ted Smokestad has a Super America car up, and there goes Randy Ruhlman.
Whoa.
Randy Ruhlman is around over in turn number 1, and this time everybody skates by, but skating is a good word for it, I think, because there was a lot of guys who were hard on the brakes.
I guarantee that Jeff Millar, the spotter for Scott Hansen, was telling him exactly what to do as he went sliding past Bob Seneker's. Both drivers went to the outside of the preformed line forward of Ruhlman.
That's 7 cautions. And we are at lap 100. We got 200 more laps to go. Kind of hard to really put a finger on what it is that's been causing all of the cautions. I guess it would just have to be the difficulties of negotiating or navigating this racetrack.
Ruhlman had just pitted, and as he comes out, he lights him up going into turn 1, slides up the track.
And I don't think it's the surface necessarily. I think it's just the lines around this place are so crazy. Really.
Tim Sauter near the fence. There's Seneca sliding his way through. Hansen was already on the brakes. Those 2 cars to the outside.
This truly could be one of the most difficult tracks on the tour to drive around. And it really taxes the abilities of the drivers to find the proper line. There's Scott Hansen, still in a position to earn a tremendous amount of points here today in this fight for the lead in the point standings on lap 102. He was credited with 4th position, and Gary St. Amant credited with 20th, and Gary at this point is a lap down.
Very interesting to see how this plays out. Last weekend at Minnesota State Fair, Gary St. Amant finishes up in the top 3. Finishes 6th. He ran up in the top 3 for quite a while. Hansen had a tire problem early and lost a lap. They ran together most of the race, but the race was already decided as far as points would go. It was a 7-place difference, 6th to 13th, and that's how we got the point lead for Gary St. Amant back by a single point. But it looks like it's the exact opposite of a week ago, with St. Amant now encountering slight problems with the right front damage.
Well, this will flip around a little bit due to Hansen pulling into the pits. But let's check in with Dave Burns, who can update us on all these cars, David, who have had so many problems here today.
Yeah, we've had some that have stayed out, some that have stayed in, and let's give you just a quick hit list here. Mike Garvey is back on the track. They had a broken shock from that very early incident. They've replaced that. They have him back out in front, or back out on the track in the St. Louis Gear Chevy. Tom Jones went out early. He believes he broke a valve on the number 0 car. Dave Anspaugh broke a trailing arm, and he was going at getting that fixed, and they've tried to get him back out before the end of the day. Steve Carlson sustained significant damage from that early race accident, and it looks like he is done for the afternoon, along with Bob Dorstowitz, who may have been the cause of that very first incident. Cindy Peterson had an ignition problem. They replaced the entire box and sent her back out. And just as a quick update, you may have seen Matt Kenseth come in for his very first pit stop in the 08 AutoCat car. They replaced left side tires on that car and sent Matt back on his way.
Also coming into pit were Bob Seneker, Scott Hansen, and Tony Raines, along with Harold Fair this last caution.
Well, we had 10 cautions here last year, by the way, as we go back to green. 10 cautions for 67 laps, so we're almost on pace, I hate to say. Gary St. Amant at this point is credited with 19th position, but he sits 3rd on the racetrack. He is 1 lap down. He needs to get that winch forward around Sawinski to see if he can't get that lap back and stay in the points hunt here today.
Mike Eddy has entered pit lane in the 88.
Oh boy. So much for the theory about good luck maybe starting to find Mike Eddy. And if it's a distributor cap, you're going to see Mike Eddy just go absolutely ballistic.
See what his baseball throwing arm looks like, I think.
3 races in a row, this car has suffered distributor problems. It has been absolutely amazing. There is no yellow flag out. Mike Eddy is going laps down at this point. And he's done. Unbelievable. The 7-time champion once again is suffering hard luck after he fought his way from 21st to the lead. The Goodrich Service Pontiac team is just frustrated. There you see Howard Thomas. Total looks of disbelief on the faces of these team members and that driver. Back to the front. Sawinski fighting with Mike Miller.
Mike Eddy had led 15 laps of this event and charged through the field on his way back through after pit stops, and now he's behind the wall.
We talked about lightning striking twice. Well, it could strike 3 times for one of these drivers. Mike Miller picking up 2 wins. Career best for him in 1 year on the ASA Tour. He only had 1 win some 15 years ago, and all of a sudden this year, he comes in and picks up 3 wins, side on the pole. Kevin Sawinski, he's a rookie. He's not supposed to get wins. He's got 2 back-to-back.
First time in ASA history he's done that.
And a yellow. The yellow is out once again, and we've got a hot foot for Brandon Sperling. He is out of the car, but you can see the flame underneath. Could be an oil fire.
He is out of the car.
And Brandon walks away. Oh, that ain't good. So the emergency crew is scrambling to get to the car to put the flame out.
And see the action in the entrance to the pit road. The good news, Brandon Sperling is out of his
Going
car.
underneath the car to see if they get the flame out and then lift the hood. See if they can trace the problem. Well, while they put that out, we can't see anything because of the smoke anyway. Let's check in with Dave Burns. Dave, was it a distributor again on the 88?
Well, we're going to ask Mike. Of course, the world wants to know, Mike, if it was that dang distributor again this week on that motor.
Well, we didn't go far enough to find out. It started to miss, and it's got to miss. And so I'm going to say I'm sure it's not the distributor, but I'm not sure anything anymore. You know, the GM Goodrich Pontiac was running awful good again today, and I mean, this is just a sample of what our luck's been like all year, and you know, we'll be back next week. We'll just smile and we'll be back.
Mike, the car did look extremely fast. How hard is this track to drive? We see a lot of guys spinning out there today. Is it tough to drive?
Well, no, this track is really pretty easy to drive if you don't overdrive it. If you overdrive it, you're screwed up all the way around. You're better off to underdrive it a little bit, and then everything works out fine.
Well, guys, underdriving and overdriving it doesn't matter if your motor's not working. And Mike Eddy, bad luck again today. This time, perhaps not the distributor.
And even more terrible luck for Brandon Sperling as the 15 Eaglewood Pontiac is out due to a fire. Well, things happening all over the racetrack here at WIR. We're coming back to the Tournament of Speed 300 after this. We're back to prime racing coverage of the ASA's Tournament of Speed 300 with the AC-Delco Challenge Series. They call it the Tournament of Speed as you watch your leader Kevin Sawinski in the Brown and Sharp Chevy, because they actually run a whole host of divisions here. So 316 cars total showed up for 8 different divisions of racing over the weekend. There are 145 campers here on the grounds, almost as many campers as there were racers here this weekend.
A lot of great racing. Mentioned last night the Artco race was run. 5 ASA drivers competed in that event that are running today, and Joe Shear was the winner last evening. Sawinski was one of them, had a right rear tire go down, so I would think tires are top of mind awareness with this Brown and Sharp Minnesota-based team.
One of the other things they're going to be watching is the weather. How does it look, Dave?
Well, for Mike Chaffee, the crew chief for Kevin Sawinski, they want to stay out a little while longer. They changed right side tires on lap 73, but for the moment, they're watching the Weather Channel. They want to know moment to moment what's happening with this weather, and that's why they haven't brought him in on some of these successive yellows. They want to stay out in front as long as they can, and right now, the car is running very well. The car that's not running so well is Scott Hansen's car. That car is moving back. It's very loose, the report is from their pits.
Well, the weather is, too, that there was one front that just missed us. It was about 15 minutes away, and it bounced to the south, so we're okay with that one. The next one, supposedly, is an hour or so away from us, so we stand a real good chance now of dodging the weather problems. So they're going to have to turn their dish back to prime to see how the race goes and get off that weather channel. There's Mike Miller, and still Gary St. Amant circulates behind him. Gary not able to capitalize on the opportunity, and look at Tony Roper. He slides inside the 08 of Matt Kenson. Roper will move himself up into 6th position with that move, and Raines goes after Seneker. Oh, and there's contact down in turn 4 between those two, and Seneker slams the hand out of the cookie jar. But Roper trying to capitalize on it. Good racing going on here for 4th position.
Seneker's damage came way back on lap 32. There's 143 circuits in, so he's been able to live through a couple of incidents.
As banged up as Seneker's car looks, it certainly is not running like a damaged race car. Bob has the 84 Bluebird just sailing along out there right now, listed in 4th position. Some 1.3 seconds behind Sawinski. 3 wins this year, and one of Bob's best seasons in ASA, and Raines trying to find a way to get that Howie let-out prepared 87 inside of Seneker to take over the 4th position. Nothing doing it this time. Seneker had a great run here last year, finished 3rd. More wins than anybody else on the tour in 1996.
Leading the ASA category there as well with 82 career victories.
Do you think he'll match the car number on the side before the year's out this year?
I really do.
This year?
The way the car has been running, the way that team's been performing, they've held up in the stretch run. I certainly think Seneca can match that this year.
Only a handful of races left to go this year, but you certainly wouldn't want to bet against him. They're catching up to the 47 car, the Dave Duran entry. His first time in ASA competition. He's getting a good up-close look at it right now. As he goes to the bottom, they all come around on the outside.
As Seneca holds off Tony Raines here, or does he? Not this time. I just started talking about how he's able to hold him up, and Rains goes to the bottom, pinches it down, and down the backstretch. It's a drag race into 3.
That time, Seneca can't shut the door, and he's not going to be able to close the door on Tony Roper. And a little bit of contact there as well. But can Bob keep Kenseth away? Doesn't look like it. Rains will move on past. And Kenseth comes up to the inside now of Seneca as well. And if Loney's smart, he'll tuck down behind Kenseth and see if he can't do the same. Bob is hung out to dry on the outside, but it doesn't look like Loney can get down there. That car dancing to the outside, and Bob looks like he's just a little too strong for Kenseth at this point.
Seneca trying to hang on to 6th, and 7th is Matt Kenseth. They both pitted at the same time on lap 102. They pitted along with Scott Hansen. Hansen's a full straightaway behind these guys, so Hansen indeed having his hands full as these guys are starting to heat it up.
So Kenseth will have to drop back now. He's going to have to worry about Loney, who comes to the inside and easily takes the spot away from Kenseth. Well, Tony Roper is flying here today, Dave. What are they saying in his pit?
Well, we'll ask Kevin McCurdy. For the 2nd week in a row, you guys are doing extremely well. Tony must be happy with the car.
Tony's very happy with the car. Ever since we unloaded here yesterday, the car's run really well. Keeping a car neutral here is really an effort, and tire management's going to be the key today, I think.
Well, in Minnesota, you were very quick and then dropped back. What did you learn from that? What's going to be your strategy from here on out?
The biggest thing we learned is not to run out of tires in the pits, and we've got plenty today. We lost our good spotter, though. I mean, we really miss having you up in the grandstands this week. We really enjoyed it last week, but we're going to pit one more time for lefts and then probably one more time for rights. Seems like new rubber is the key here. We got to keep the car neutral. If you're tight, you're out to lunch, and if you're loose, you're in the fence.
Well, guys, he was referring to my busman's holiday at the Minnesota State Fair, where I actually got to spot for Tony Roper. What an experience, but I know his dad, Dean Roper, will do just as well here today.
Thank you, Dave.
Clear.
Don't quit your day job just yet. We need you back.
Clear.
Well, we're working lap 154, and we are going to clear out of here. We're going to clear out for a break. I'm Bart Benson. Your brother did a great job last night. Stay with us. We're back to watching Kevin Sawinski continue to dominate here at Wisconsin International Raceway, and he's running on some tires that might be getting due.
He and Mike Miller both pitted on lap 70 or lap 160 this time by in this big half at Kaukauna. They are running on some old rubber, but they're able to pull away from Steve Holtzhausen. It's amazing to watch these guys circle around the racetrack in 20.5 seconds, where the pole speed was 19.87 seconds, so they're just a half second off qualifying speed, averaging around 96 miles per hour. So to stay that consistent on this racetrack that, as I mentioned, is not the newest surface, but they're able to keep those cars underneath them and keep the rubber down. It's quite an amazing story.
Working lap 160, so we are well past the halfway point here. 4 lead changes, 4 different leaders. 8 cautions, but that's not the record yet. There were some 12 cautions here last year. 42 of them have been run under yellow today.
I have to wonder what these guys found. Sawinski and Mike Miller, both drivers are credited with the last 3 race victories in ASA. Sawinski picking up Milwaukee and Anderson. Mike Miller will tell you that he guessed right at Minnesota on the race setup. While everybody else was loosening up their cars, he was tightening up their car. And he said that came strictly out of knowledge of having raced there so many times in the past. As far as Kevin Sawinski, I think Kevin's deal is that he has got really one of the best teams in ASA Racing. Scott Lefebvre has done a great job of providing this Brown and Sharp team with everything they need. One of the best shops, some of the most cars, everything you need to go racing. Mike Chaffee's been a crew chief that has been on the verge of just exploding on this scene at any time. Did great stuff with Jay Sauter in years past, and we know that Kevin is a proven champion from his ARCO things. I think they just clicked quicker than everybody expected them to. Certainly with the experience of Sawinski traveling in a number of circuits, running some all-pro races as well, and Chaffee with 14 years experience in ASA. Getting back to Mike Miller, he also kind of hoodwinked a bunch of guys. The last caution at Minnesota State Fairgrounds, he came in, changed rights. Then he came back the next lap and swapped lefts. You can only change 2 tires, but you can, as we know now, it's legal to move position on any other 2 tires. That was the key to victory, with the left front being less worn than the left rear. How about the 08 of Matt Kenseth? Boy,
Nothing I would rather see, Dave Burns, than Matt Kenseth get a chance to come over here and run full-time with the American Speed Association next year.
They're talking about doing that, and you may see Matt in one of these cars next year for the entire 1997 season. Right now, they've told Matt to pick up the pace a little bit. They were saving the car, letting off on the brakes, not driving it too hard. But guys, it is beginning to sprinkle down here on the track. And so they told Matt, time to get up and go. Pass Loney and Seneker if you can. He's got Loney. Now he's going to go to work on Bob Seneker.
Well, the storm system that was supposed to be an hour away apparently is traveling quicker than any of our race cars because it chewed up an hour pretty fast.
Got a good look there at race leader Kevin Swinski's girlfriend Tracy Shaversky looking to the clouds to start the rain dance. And as the leader passed halfway, if the rain is kind of a permanent thing here, they may indeed call the race anytime after the race is completed to the halfway point.
Let's give you the top 10 right now as they stand on lap 168. Sawinski, Miller, Holzhausen, Rains, Roper, Seneker, Kenseth, Loney, Sensiba, and Smokestad. Now, if you're scoring at home for the point standings, Hansen is credited with 12, and Gary St. Amant is credited with 17. So Hansen, who was really in a position to just blow this thing wide open today, not able to do that at this point.
Scott Hansen is almost more than a half a lap now behind the race leader. So he, if it goes green for a number of laps more with his loose condition, speaking of Hansen in the Wisconsin Aviation Wares Chevrolet, if he continues to loosen up, the leaders might get on by him. Then he'll be on the same lap as St. Amant. We'll get down to strategy a lap down instead of Hansen holding off that 5-position bulge and staying on lead lap.
Look at that shot there as that fight rages on up near the front of the field. Close short track racing going on here as only they can do it on the American Speed Association's AC-Delco Challenge Series. Where else would you find it? On Prime. There's a threat of rain in the area of Kaukauna, Wisconsin, but right now it's nothing but blue sky for Kevin Sawinski as he continues to shine brightly in front of the field here in that number 1. Could this rookie pick up his 3rd win of the 1996 season? What a story that would be. The other story we're following, of course, is the point standing story. St. Amant is in 17th, Hansen's in 12th. St. Amant came into this race a point in front of Hansen, and right now, if they finish that way, it would be a 20-point gain and a new point leader for Scott Hansen. So Sawinski now looking to put Carl Muscat's Odessa number 8 a lap down. Top 10 includes Sawinski. Holzhausen has moved back into 2nd in the 5 car. Remember, he was up front running hard. There's a look back to that gap to 2nd. He has finally gotten around Mike Miller, who holds on to 3rd. Then it's Roper, Rains, Seneker, who's having a tough day, but he's fighting through those difficulties, running in 6th. Matt Kenseth, 7th. Loney, Smokestad, and Sensiba in 10th position. There's Mike Miller hanging on that 18 car. He tightened the car up a lot at the start of this race. It's not usual, Dave Burns, for Mike Miller to make an adjustment right just before the start of the race, but he did it today.
Well, it looked like they guessed right at the beginning of the race. The car was quick, but Carl Hyland, something tells me right now you don't want this race to end under rain. You need to get back in here and set something up different on that car.
Yeah, if we get back in, we'll probably take on another set of right side tires and maybe flip-flop left side at the same time. You know, here for the AFC 1000 USA Team Handball Car Cop Pontiac, it's doing pretty good right now, but we really need to get in here and get some tires and drop a little more gas. We'll be good for the go, Dave.
What is it right now? Is it tight for him? Is it loose, or what's the handling problem?
The car's just a little bit tight. We need to hold the stagger up just a little bit.
Okay, in these weird corners, every time Mike heads in there, that car doesn't want to turn, so hopefully they'll get to make another pit stop before this is over.
Some other things to take note of as we continue our statistical conversations here today. Mike Miller is 8th in the points, so he can do well here if he can hold on to a 3rd. But the guy who's really going to capitalize as well is Sawinski. Not only would he get a 3rd win of the year, but he is 7th in points and within 15 of Joey Knott. And Knott is really struggling. He is 18th today. Sawinski is on the verge of maybe finding himself inside the top 5. He has absolutely made a mockery of the Pat Shower Rookie of the Year chase this year. Just dominated that, as you would expect anybody with 3 wins to do.
2 wins so far.
2, but the way
You're right.
I'm already ahead of myself, aren't I? But the way he's been running, I might just be spot on with it. Of course, Steve Holtzhausen, that number 5, would like to have a say. Carl Muscatine not making things easy for him. Look at that.
Muscatine in 15th on lead lap. The final car on lead lap now gets the move over push from race leader Kevin Sawinski.
Well, he just did not want to give in either. And now he's going to cut up in front of Holtzhausen.
Carl Muscatine qualified 5th, stayed on lead lap in the Odessa Auctions number 8, but the leaders came up all too quickly on that white and blue Chevy, and Sawinski flat out moved him over.
Not used to seeing that kind of a stuff out of Carl Muscatine as well, but boy, that sure looked kind of weird.
Sawinski had about a 2.5 second lead on Steve Holtzhausen. I think that predicated the move. Sawinski said, I can't wait around. Holtzhausen's coming. He's probably as fast as I am, or faster, because he caught me without traffic being the barrier. And next on the target list for Kevin Sawinski is Scott Hansen in the Metro Milwaukee Auto Auction Chevy. Into turn 1, that's Holtzhausen running in second, trying to chase those guys down.
The only thing I can think of was that Carl was trying to get to the bottom so that they could get around him on the outside, and they were more interested in just getting around whatever. And look at this, Hansen could go down a lap.
Hansen in 14th. Running the middle line, and Sawinski will look low this time. Again, Hansen about to go lap down. Race leader Kevin Sawinski has held the point since lap 96. 188 laps are in.
Not something Hansen needs, because that'll put him on the same lap as St. Amant at this point.
That will also take him off of pitting with the lead lap cars to get track position. They have to wait after lead lap cars pit to come down pit lane, and cars that are down 1 lap or more.
Well, and you can see Scott really fighting. He had the wheels turned completely to the right as he went into that left-hand turn. Fighting it, he will go down a lap. So 22 cars down a lap, 13 on the lead lap here today at this point in the race as we work lap 190 of the scheduled 300. Raindrops have not increased, it does not seem, but there's still a threat of it in the area. There's some drops on the windshield of our booth, if you will. And Hansen's crew looks on. Well, that is Roger Slack, and he has been waving that yellow flag a lot today. For the 9th time, he has just stuck it out over the racetrack because Dr. Yale Conley of the Simonton Windows number 3 Monte Carlo lost it in front of the leaders in turn number 1. Pretty scary, but the leaders will get a chance to pit now, Dave.
Well, and Sawinski obviously was somewhat, well, actually it was a kind of a gamble. They stayed out a long time. They did not get the rain delay. In fact, the rain has pretty much subsided now, and they're going to go to work on the rear of the Brown and Sharp Coleman Racing Products Chevrolet. They're going to change 2 rear tires and get Kevin back out of here, trying to beat Holtzhausen and Kenseth, who are right behind him. A good pit stop for that crew, and they get him out, I believe, first. Meanwhile, we have a drag race going between Scott Hansen and Steve Holtzhausen. Hansen will win that. Obviously, he was given permission to come in with the leaders. Tim Sauter was going to make a pit stop right when the yellow flag came out. He has no brakes and has been racing around Kaukauna, pumping the brakes every time to try to get those things back up to spec. And as you know, here, brakes are very important. So Sauter will try to come in, and they really can't do anything but stop using him, cool him down, and try to keep him out here at Kaukauna.
Well, that was big for Hansen, as you see Randy Ruhlman stopped at pit entrance, the Reform 49. The big news for Hansen was now that he'll be right behind Sawinski, and that will give him an opportunity to gain that lap back. Let's take a look at the replay.
Here are your leaders. They're right behind Joe Knott in the red car and Yale Conley in the number 3. They're coming off of turn number 4, got very tight, and Conley saw him in the mirrors, tried to keep it down low. Went over the bump there, separating the big half from the tight quarter mile, and looks like he just flat out pinched it down. He tried not to hit Knott, got on the brakes, and the car unloaded on him, as they say. All the weight transferred, and around he went. And look at the leaders going by. I would think Sawinski's eyes got as big as his goggles as he saw the car sideways in front of him.
A little bumpy down there, too. You can see the cars sliding across the asphalt down there. More on the good doctor from Dave Burns.
Well, Ralph, we just wanted to pass along our condolences to the entire Conley family. Yale lost a grandmother this week, and apparently he was very tight with her, sort of the matriarch of the family there, and Yale had to missed the funeral in order to be out here. He wished that we would send apologies to his family. They actually talked it over and decided that he should stay out here and earn the secondary living, as they say. But Yale wanted everyone to know that he wished he could be out there with him, and we, of course, pass along our condolences and now best wishes for the Conley family as they deal with the loss of Yale's grandmother.
So the Simonton Windows Chevy will continue on here today. And we will take a quick break as they continue to get things set up and ready to go back to green here at the WI. We're back to green racing here at Wisconsin International Raceway. Oh, and Yale Conley goes around again with a little help from Carl Scott. And everybody misses him.
Ted Smokestead of the Super America Pontiac trying to find the green.
And look at this. Scott Hansen has got the spot back from Sawinski, and he will get the lap back. So that was the break that Hansen needed.
13th and final car in lead lap is now the 53 car of Hansen.
Well, that was big, possibly in the world of the points championship here in the American Speed Association. Yale Conley having a tough day today. You know, we should have known there was something about the Sawinski character. It only took him 4 races for him to make the podium. Took a second place in the 4th race of the year in Indianapolis Raceway Park behind Scott Hansen. Sawinski came out strong right from the get-go, and this is what happened to Yale Conley.
Bunched him up on the restart. He and Carl Scott, and you see Smokestead taking the inside pasture move, and close call for the Car Cop Pontiac and Mike Miller.
Another look at it.
Tony Roper, yeah, looked like Roper might have come down sooner than Yale Conley thought he would, but they were single file heading into the turn.
Do you think the contact was from in front of him or from behind him?
Looks like he might have got it. I think right ahead of him, Tony Roper might have made it a little narrow for Yale Conley to get through there. Might have checked up and got help from the Scott to go around.
So Hansen dives down pit road and comes back out.
As did Dave Sensiva, Mike Miller, Brad Loney, Ted Smokestead, who did that sideways move, and Tony Raines, who was the first car out on that pit stop.
Some 95 laps left here at Kaukauna. Joe Knott struggling through the day.
Well, that's an understatement. They've had a decent race car, but they just have not had the luck. They've got involved in a couple of incidents. There was a crash on lap 32 that he was involved with. They tried to tape it back together. In lap 93, he got together again in turns 3 and 4 with Ron Wheeler and Harold Fair. He used to have a full roll of that super speedway tape trying to get that 48 car back together.
Joe plans on debuting a brand new helmet the next race, which will be 2 weeks from yesterday at Cedar Rapids, Iowa, as we march on through the 1996 AC-Delco Challenge Series season. Second visit to Cedar Rapids this year. We go back to green with Kevin Sawinski still in front of Steve Holzhausen.
Coming down that front stretch, it sure looks funky off that turn 1 camera. They come off at turn number 4, it's a complete arc, and then they shoot right down to the inside of turn number 1. This time by, I see Sawinski leading the pack. They go right up next to the wall, and it's a hard left to the finish line.
Good look at the entire field, including a sideways Mike Garvey. Back to the front. And Gary St. Amant now wins 4, the number 7, still not able to get that lap back. He is in great position to do so and has been in that position for a while. There's a fight for third with Kenseth and Seneca. You can see Matt waving inside the car. Oh, and look at this. Holzhausen getting aggressive. And look at St. Amant trying to come with him. We've got a new leader, and St. Amant might be able to get a little closer to getting that lap back.
Kenseth was waving in the car, thinking ahead to see what may happen going into turn number 1, telling Seneca to back off behind, but that is out the window this time by, is now very tight quarters.
Oh, and look at Sawinski get sideways. He got into a bumping situation with Kenseth, and now Seneca comes by. Well, Kevin has been hung up on the outside. I don't think he's developed a problem, but maybe he has. Tony Roper now moves in to challenge him. So Sawinski goes from 1st to 4th.
Sawinski led through the caution. He's led over over 100 laps, and it was amazing to see him drop back that quickly. He came in along with the rest of the 13 cars on lead lap for pit stop.
Meanwhile, Holzhausen opens up a 0.7 of a second lead over Matt Kenson. And Kenson said, as long as I'm running at the finish, I will be in contention to win this one. So far, his predictions have been right. He is in second place and still running. Seneca maybe getting another number closer to matching the number on the door in victories as he runs in third right now. 212 laps completed of the scheduled 300. And we've said it before, never count Seneca out. This fight is for 7th position. And now that position is held by Mike Miller as Mike waves Brad Loney saying thanks for racing me cleanly.
They're on the very bottom of the racetrack. Loney unable to hold it down there for the moment, had to let him go past. The Bunsaber Pontiac continues on now in 8th. Ted Smokestad runs in 9th position. Tony Raines after that pit stop up to 10th with Sensiba and Hansen directly behind this pair.
Harold Fair, by the way, has moved up to 6th in car number 81, and that is a great sign for them. That's a team that has struggled a lot this year as well.
Harold's had some really strong runs, running top 10, top 5 at given points in the race, and it's kind of a quiet run. Harold pitting very smartly. His son, Harold Fair Jr., the crew chief on this AC-Delco CarQuest Pontiac. This may not be the track you find Harold Fair running well at. He's won at 5 different events in the AC-Delco Challenge Series history books. As he now looks for a podium finish here. It would be his first of the season in 1996.
He can finish 6th. He'll like this place a lot here this year. Miller trying to close in on him as that fight for 6th now begins to develop. Scott Hansen runs in 11th. And in 14th is Gary St. Amant. So he would be picking up some points today, Dave, but not as many as he would like.
Well, Ralph, you'll remember he pitted with the leaders while he was a lap down before he got his lap back. The Sawinski's crew, Mike Chaffee in particular, the crew chief, went to ASA to ask, what is the deal with that? Scott was not in the lead lap. Apparently at the moment, that is an unclear rule. That rule is going to become very clear at Cedar Rapids. If you are 1 lap down, you may pit with the leaders. If you are 2 laps down, you may not. So Scott Hansen did something that was okay right now and will continue to be okay in Cedar Rapids. The Sawinski crew just wasn't sure whether or not Scott was getting a little bit of advantage there. By the way, Mike Chaffee also says, as far as Kevin Sawinski is concerned, he's saying nothing on the radio right now. They're just hoping the car will come back in for him so he can move back up to the front.
And with the pitting situation a hotly contested topic at the drivers' meeting, I'm certain in 2 weeks there will be a decision. It might just be a clear-cut rule where if you're a lap down, you can come in and pit, but I think you have to confer with the ASA officials. So they'll square it up as the drivers, and we'll go from there.
Looks like Tony Raines is struggling in the 87 car. The car that won this race last year is slipping back. Rock Wheeler has gotten by, and now Miscotton sits just in front of him. And it sounds like Dave is yelling because he's got something to maybe say about that, Dave?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. Tony Raines has lost a cylinder. The Kleinberg Pontiac lost a cylinder a number of laps ago. They've been chasing it. Of course, there's nothing they can do right now. They don't know whether they've broken a rocker arm or a valve spring, but Raines is only running on 5.
And dropping like a rock in the process.
Such a shame for the driver who won this race 1 year ago, one of his 2 victories. Looking forward to this event. He's finished on the podium 4 times, looking for a win yet this year.
Raines had been in the thick of this one early on, but not at this point. Todd Seneca, however, well within striking distance as he sits in 3rd position. Stay with us. We're coming back for more right after this. Well, we are under yellow for the 10th time of the day. It is out because of Carl Miscotton. Make that the 11th. The record was 12, so we are working that. Carl lost it down in turn number 2, and it also got Gary St. Amant to get hard on the brakes, and he lost it as well, but he did not hit anything.
A lot of dirt was flying as Carl Miscotton got off the racetrack, and that might have clouded Gary's view, or he might have gotten help on that turnaround.
That's Roper in the black car pitting, and Harold Fair as well. Now here's Miscotton sliding.
As he slides to a halt, St. Amant up the racetrack, and right about now is sliding to the infield. This might give us a better look as the yellow is already out. St. Amant sees Cindy Peterson and the race leader trying to get through there, so there really was no room for Gary to go down the racetrack at that speed. Seeing what was ahead of him on the left was the spun 8 car, and leader trying to squeeze through between himself and Peterson.
Well, I guess Kevin kind of needed this pit stop, didn't he, Dave?
They're going to roll the dice and, well, actually not roll the dice. They're going to pull the thing right off here and try to fix Kevin's problem. And they're going to go immediately to the right side of the car, put on 2 new Goodyear Racing Eagles and try to give him a way to come back up through the pack. Now, at the same time, Brad Loney and Tony Roper have also pitted, and they put themselves back to the back of the pack as well. So we'll see if Sawinski, Loney, and Roper can work their way back through. Harold Fair also made a pit stop in the AC-Delco Pontiac, and he as well will try to come from the back to the front.
Kevin told me earlier today that if you're looking at a board with some 30 laps left, you can still pit and get new tires and take off. And look at this, problems for Gary St. Amant.
St. Amant came in and pitted just a standard tire change, but now they're having trouble refiring the car. Not only did he spin to stay out of the leader's door panel, but now
sounded like it was idling, Dave.
Yeah, they cannot get the car in gear, Ralph. He can't grab first, second, third, or fourth, and so the motor is fine. They're just having trouble with the transmission.
Oh, boy. So that will really cause problems in the point standings. Hansen at this point right now is credited with 6th as Gary searches for a gear. Any gear at this point.
Gary came in with a 1-point lead. His other rival in the points chase is Scott Hansen, and the third man in the equation is Tony Raines. We just told you Raines dropped his cylinder. He'll try to finish the event. St. Amant having transmission problems, trying to get it into gear in the short quarter mile. A huge break for Scott Hansen. Had a tire problem, dropped off a lap, came back on lead lap. Could be a huge deal.
Gary's running better now. Looks like he has found a gear. What gear? We'll have to find out. Holzhausen's got it in gear. He's up front, running strong, leading it here at the Tournament of Speed. Gary St. Amant has been fighting the flu all weekend. Felt terrible when he strapped into the car, and right now as it sits up on jack stands, I would bet he feels even worse as he watches his points lead in the 1996 AC-Delco Challenge Series point standings dwindling. His #1 rival runs in 6th position. That is Scott Hansen, and Gary sits up on jack stands inside the Winch Ford Thunderbird.
Word is from ASA that Tony Roper in the child star #10 is also feeling a bit ill in the cockpit, so we'll keep monitoring that as well as Tony's running in the 10th position.
Pace car pulls off. Steve Holzhausen gets into the throttle with Bob Seneker and Mike Miller right on his tail.
Scott Hansen able to pass the 32 car of Ted Smokestad. Again, any passing on a restart must be done to the outside or the right side, and Hansen will do that and make it work on Mike Miller. Hansen back on lead lap looking for 3rd.
Oh, look at Hansen coming on now. You can see Mike Miller sideways. Hansen up there in 3rd, but here comes Hansen. Trying to work that outside line, and if anybody knows where the traction is on this track, it is the driver of the 53. Multiple track championships here. And he's got the 3rd position. It's Holzhausen, Seneker, Hansen, Kenseth, Miller, Smokestad, Sensiba, Rod Wheeler, Roper, and Raines. Raines with just 5 cylinders runs in 10th.
That has to be one of the most disappointing things you can do as a race driver. You want to win the race, but when you know you're having a bad day and you lose a cylinder, as Tony Raines has done, he's now letting everybody go by, trying to finish out the laps. It's got to be very disappointing for that whole Baker Motorsports team.
Quite an accomplishment, though, if he can hold on to 10.
Yeah.
Oh, look at Mike Miller fighting a loose condition as he tries to deal with the 08 of Kenseth. That 18 really darting around out there. Meanwhile, Hansen working the backside of Seneker, and that will not be an easy pass. Good run for the 32, the Super America car of Smokestad, who had problems early on. Just got it straightened out and running well. And Sensiba, the Lane Automotive car. West Michigan Chevy dealers, #4, having a good day.
Again, within the mix of the top 10, we find the top 10 in points, with the exception of Steve Holzhausen and Matt Kenseth. Bob Seneker, Scott Hansen, Mike Miller, Ted Smokestad, Dave Sensible, all among the top 10 or 12 in ASA points, running again a very consistent race.
Sawinski at this point now credited with 10th. He tries to fight his way back into this. We've said right along, you and I both, that we thought that Seneker might be able to fight his way back into championship contention, and if he can pull off a win here today, that isn't going to hurt that at all. Especially with Gary slipping out the way he is.
And as much as we talked about Gary St. Amant and Scott Hansen with Tony Raines thrown in there, I think the big threat continues to be the success of Bob Seneker towards the end of the season. 5 races remain after today.
The next race on the schedule is at Cedar Rapids, Iowa in 2 weeks. Hansen working above that yellow line that he personally painted here at WIR to give everybody an idea where the line is. He didn't tell them everything because he's working that outside group pretty good.
How's that saying go? Yeah, I learned everything that's from Scott Hansen, but Scott Hansen hasn't taught me everything that he knows. That's what some of these drivers are saying. Mike Miller, however, is very strong in the bottom. He's got that Kaukauna Pontiac turned left and hard on the gas pedal up the backstretch, and he's got the advantage on Hansen.
Mike Miller has become a driver that believes he can win week in and week out here in 1996, and he is driving that way. I asked him if he's, even more aggressive now that he knows that he can compete like that. He says, I probably eased off a 10th or 2 as far as the aggressiveness goes. And that might be one of the reasons why he has gotten quicker. You heard Mike Eddy say at the beginning of the show, if you drive overly aggressive at a place like this, you go backwards.
Mike Eddy, one of the retirees in the event, well down in the running order, credited right now at 28th position, but there are a number of cars making laps at a slow pace that are many laps down.
Oh, Smokestad! Oh, Tony Roper did a great job of missing the 32, and guess what's waving? A record-tying 12th caution flag.
That time he got the Super America banner. A long spin as he tried to keep it below Scott Hansen's 53, and Hansen will come down pit lane to see if he can get that car back onto how lightning quick it was on the last restart. Looks like the 32 car is poised to do the same.
All righty, so we're going to see that 12th caution flag come out, and we'll be right back for more from Kaukauna right after this.
Dave Sensiba has made it way down pit lane, changing rear tires. Scott Hansen also came down and changed right sides. He had a problem with the right front, but he did not lose a lap. However, he is the 19th car in line on these single file restarts. We'll see if he and Sensiba can make their way through the field. As the leader, Steve Holtzhausen, brings it off of turn number 4. 247 laps will be in this time by. And the tournament of speed 300. Holtzhausen leads him into turn 1 as the 5th race leader.
Well, if we get another yellow, it will be the record-breaking yellow here at Kaukauna for the American Speed Association. It will be the 13th time. So we don't see that. 300 laps is what we're going after. 248 that are down. Well, and guess what? There's the record breaker right there. Mike Miller got into the back of Matt Kenseth. Kenseth went around. Well, they call it short track stock car racing, full contact sport. And we have seen that here today.
The face masks are definitely meeting bumper to bumper here.
Well, we've been running for 8 weeks, week in and week out. We will have a weekend off between now and Cedar Rapids, and I would think that that's probably a good thing. Maybe, look at Kenseth talking to Miller about it. But I think, maybe these guys are a little bit wound up, you think?
I think they'll be happy to see their wives for a weekend instead of seeing each other every weekend. There's some debris on the backstretch. It could be a hose or a air duct line from Kenseth's cars. He did a complete 360-degree spin off of turn number 2.
Well, he's going to pit. You can see Matt has already been utilizing tires from some other cars as the wheels don't match up anymore on Kenseth's car, but they're going to change that right rear. How are things with Gary St. Amant's car, Dave?
Well, they have sprayed anything cold they can get their hands on, including a fire extinguisher, on Gary's clutch. So they've cooled it down. They believe that that is going to allow him to get back out on the track. Now, what put him here in the first place was that spin down in turn number 1, and that caused the clutch to get it out of alignment somehow. He couldn't find a single gear. That spin, Gary told me, was not his fault. Steve Holzhausen got into him a little bit. That was what they were most unhappy about.
David, is it slipping on him?
Well, they said it would not get into gear at all, and by cooling it down, I imagine they've tried to, if metal swells, they have tried to cool it down so it'll work better than it was. That's about all I can say about that. Gary also had a touch of the flu today, so he's been battling quite a bit to try to stay out in front of the points in the AC-Delco Challenge Series.
The reason why I asked about the slipping, one of the most creative things I ever saw was in an IMSA race at Lime Rock once before. They used Coke. They actually poured it into the clutch housing, and what it did was it was cold enough that it cooled things back down, but the syrup actually coats it and allows it to keep from slipping. So I was wondering if that was going to be the problem there.
Huh. Very interesting. Very ingenious.
Well, Holzhausen continues to lead. I don't think Steve, even if he leads the rest of the day, can end up leading the most laps today. That will still credit 5 points to Sawinski, correct?
I believe so.
Well, that pace car missed the exit, so that kind of goofed up that start. And that will get Rex Robbins screaming in the ASA officials booth next door, I would think.
Roger Regath is the pace car driver, longtime Wisconsin short track standout. Getting turned behind the wheel, and first time driving the pace car here at Wisconsin International for the ASA. He does it for the Mid-American Series from time to time.
Here's the pace car missing the exit.
I think he wanted to go racing. Roger's a racer with 30 years experience. He figured out where the yellow light switch was, though. That was good.
All right, so we'll go around one more time and line them all up. I guarantee you, Roger won't miss it this time.
Nope.
Inside our final.
Let's take a look at the incident that caused us to go yellow. Watch the 18 get into the 08. Looks like Matt was a little loose to begin with.
A little loose, but Mike Miller gave him no square there as he tapped him as he went around. Did not give him a chance to gather it back up. You see the, that's not an unassisted tap there. He definitely spun off of the corner with help from Mike Miller. But as you mentioned, Ralph, it looked like he was a little bit sideways.
Yeah, he had just started, I think, but he might have been able to catch it. Mike definitely helped put him around. Okay, Roger's off, and we're green.
Roger slapped, and we're racing again at Wisconsin International Raceway.
Now lubricator 5 pulls back out front.
And if Holzhausen elects not to pit, he will go the last 104 circuits on the same set of tires. His tire specialist, Dave Marg, was Kevin Sawinski's crew chief for a dozen years, and he was the crew chief last season when Sawinski won the ARTCO Championship. He's now working with this brand new Finetti Scelzo Motorsports team.
Basically, the merger of two teams that has turned out to be a great idea. This is a team that if they can secure some good-sized sponsorship for next year, it looks like the folks at Powell's helping them out. If they can get that all locked in for next year, boy, this is going to be a championship contending team from the get-go.
1 year ago, Brian Ruffner was the driver of this car, and he had a championship season of his own. Finished well up in the standings in this race a year ago.
Mike Miller continuing to slide around in that 18 car. And Sawinski is now going to work the outside of him as Kevin has fought his way back. Remember, he slipped back to 10th. Now he's looking at 3rd. Got it. All right, so Holzhausen and Sawinski have been up front all day. Kevin is fighting his way back up there. There's that 84 sneaking in there, looking to make a move in the championship standings, and he can do so right now because Hansen has slipped back. So Hansen has fallen all the way back to 9th.
Hansen came in the last pit stop, changed right side tires. Dave Sensiba changed rears, and its last caution, Matt Kenseth also changed rear tires within the 50 laps to the finish window.
There's the fight for 8th now as Hansen gets past the CarQuest AC-Delco 81 of Harold Fair.
Dave Sensiba in a position to advance in points as well. It's awfully tight up top.
Coming into this race, Seneca was 4th in the point standings. just behind Tony Raines. And as we've chronicled earlier, Raines is struggling. He's running 13th right now. So if Bob can hold on to a top 3 position here, he might find himself moving into, or certainly closer to challenging for the 3rd position in the point standings. He was 69 points behind coming into this race.
Sawinski on the move. The Brown and Sharp Chevrolet led nearly 100 complete laps in a row, held the lead through pit stops, had a tire problem, sent him back to 4th or 5th. Now he's charging back through, working on Seneca, the Bluebird, for 2nd.
Bob holding a pretty good line there, though. Not going to be easy for Kevin to find any space underneath the 84 at this point. He's really going to have to work hard for it. Well, maybe not too hard. He's got it right there. Sawinski back to 2nd position. And look at Miller. He dips 2 wheels into the dirt and still hangs on to 4.
You called it earlier, Ralph. You said the 5 car and the 1 car might be the story today. And at that point in time, Sawinski was leading. Now it's Holzhausen trying to open up the gap. This time through, it's a 0.9 second lead. We'll continue to watch the interval for you here on Prime.
Roper in the 10 car runs in 5th, and he is all over the backside of Mike Miller's Pontiac. We should also note that it is a Ford, a Chevy, a Ford, a Pontiac, and a Chevy, the top 5. So that manufacturer standings, ain't going to get any more wide open there. It's still going to be tight.
They award points to only the top 3 finishers, 3 to the winner, 2 for 2nd, and 1 for 3rd. So that's how they stack up the Manufacturers Cup Championship. Coming to this race, Ford and Pontiac tied with 38 markers apiece. The interval now down to 0.57 seconds.
There's a fight for 7th with Hansen and Smokestack, and let's check in with Dave Roper with a sick and frustrated Gary St. Amant, I would imagine.
Well, these guys worked awfully hard to get him back out there, but apparently the clutch has just gone away too far.
Yeah, evidently when we spun out there, overworked the clutch trying to get taken off there. Just a bad day all around for the Winsport Thunderbird.
How are you going to bounce back now? We don't know quite where the points are going to hang out at the end of this thing, but how are you going to bounce back for 2 weeks in Cedar Rapids?
We got to win. That's all we can do with the last 4 or 5 races. We just got to go out there and win, and gonna have to play a little bit of hardball. We were a pretty good car today, and I think I was quick enough to get my lap back. A couple guys wouldn't let us get it back, and might have to start playing a little hardball with them.
Hey guys, no way Gary's given up. He was a points leader coming in, and he wants to be there at the end of the year.
He probably won't slip back more to the 2nd place in the point standings. He completed some 99.95% of the laps available coming into today. So that'll give you an idea of the frustration Gary's feeling. There's your leaders as we continue to work our way through the Tournament of Speed 300. 269 laps are complete.
Becoming a 2-horse race as Bob Seneca has dropped back 10 car lengths in the clutches of Mike Miller and Tony Roper. Roper, another great run, running 5th.
Holzhausen and Sawinski setting up a great fight to the finish here in Kaukauna. We're coming back after this. Kevin Sawinski by far has the faster car here today. He is in car number 1, the Brown and Sharp Chevy, running behind the Howes lubricator number 5 Thunderbird of Steve Holzhausen. What kind of a year has Kevin Sawinski had? Well, he's got 2 wins, 2 poles. He's finished on the lead lap 7 times this year. He's got 4 top 5s coming into today. And he's been in the top 10 9 times. Not bad for a rookie.
Out of 14 races, that's a great year right there.
Pat Shower Rookie of the Year award, without a doubt, will go to Kevin. Oh boy, he got a little tight there trying to get around the good doctor, Yale Conley.
Pays $50,000 to win the Rookie of the Year in the American Speed Association, which has brought in some great talent to run for that Rookie of the Year championship.
Hearing some names kicked around already for next year's battle. Look at that fight, though. Tim Sauter, maybe Matt Kenseth. So that Pat Shower Rookie fight will be a good one again next year.
20 to go this time by. Working lap 180.
Well, who do you give a nod to here? We know both these drivers have done a lot of laps here. We know that Holzhausen has more laps in an ASA car, and he's feeling pretty good about this team that he's with. Your leader in the car number 5, Sawinski is really on a roll and is loving everything this Lefebvre Racing Chevy has got to offer. Who do you like?
I like Sawinski's line right now. Holtzhausen unable to hold it in the middle of the corner. Watch right here as he enters turn 3. He drifts up at least a car width. Now Sawinski can get a good jump off of that as the laps close down. He may challenge off of that turn. And now heading into turn number 1, the black 5 drifts up. Sawinski able to keep it way down on the bottom of the right rear, working where the left front tires go through the racetrack of Holtzhausen. That might be critical where he's able to get through the corner better. He's pushing Steve Holtzhausen. Any mistake by Holtzhausen would be a second place finish.
I thoroughly agree. I think Holtzhausen is hanging on. I think Sawinski has got the better car, the quicker car, the faster car, everything he needs. It's just a question of when does the door open. We do know that Holtzhausen knows how to make that door awfully small to sneak through.
In the motor department, it's Sterling versus Tizar in the closing laps here. Sterling motor underneath that Howes lubricator Ford hood.
Remember now, Sawinski has won on a high bank quarter mile and a flat 1 mile, and Holtzhausen got his victory on a half mile this year. Both these drivers have visited victory lane so far this year.
Holtzhausen again.
That could be it right there. Here he comes. Can he make it stick? He's up alongside of him. As they go down to the turns, though, Holtzhausen shuts the door. Not too much, as he is unable to really. There it is. Now he closes the door on him.
For as much as Sawinski backed off going into turn number 1, he stayed right on Holtzhausen. We'll see what happens this time.
Well, I think Kevin is pretty smart. He knows he's got the quicker car, and he is just trying to force Steve into making a big enough mistake at this point with 15 laps yet to be run here that he doesn't have to force the issue too much. He's up alongside. There's some contact there. Great short track racing as we go down into turn 3, and that's all it's going to take. Sawinski gets inside and past Steve Holtzhausen. Holtzhausen tries to counterattack here as they go back into turn number 1, but can't make it happen.
Steve's going to use that car up trying to get around Kevin.
He's all over that back bumper. A little bumping going on there.
Now it's Holtzhausen's turn to put on the pressure.
Well, let's see if Sawinski can pull away. They've got some space before they catch up to the slower car, Billy Turner.
With Sawinski having the faster car, Holtzhausen had to play defense. Now Holtzhausen can let it all hang out. We'll see if he can challenge the race leader, Sawinski, who has led the most laps today.
Sawinski and Holtzhausen. Seneker holds on to 3rd. Mike Miller's 4th. 5th is still Tony Roper. Hansen is up to 6th. Smokestad is 7th. Maloney is 8th. Kenseth has dropped all the way back to 9th, and a great run still for Harold Fair. He is in 10th. Coming around with 10 laps left as Bill Barrett gets told to move over. The leaders are coming through. Barrett, the number 26, will look for a way to get out of the way. Keith Strunk, by the way, the crew chief for Bill Barrett, has made the announcement that he will be leaving Barrett's team. It's an amicable split. He is going to go down south and work for a Busch Grand National team. No word yet as to who Bill's new crew chief will be. And here's a look back to the next pack of cars. There is Seneker fighting with Miller as they fight for 3rd. Roper trying to catch them as well as he runs in 5th.
Mike Miller was running behind Bob Seneker lap after lap, and now he's trying to put the pressure on in the closing laps.
There's your leaders once again. Sawinski not able to pull away from Holtzhausen the way we thought he would. They're going to have Tony Raines in front of them in just a little bit. Raines in 13th position. And it looks like the raindrops are starting to increase a little bit. But we will probably see the conclusion of this one at full song because we are already working lap 293, just 7 to go to the completion of the Tournament of Speed 300, the AC-Delco Challenge Series. Holtzhausen trying everything, isn't he? Looking outside, looking inside.
Tony Raines may be a factor, and keep in mind he has 5 cylinders working on that Wagner power plant, so a testament to how strong that motor is on 5. He's stayed on lead lap the last 50 laps or so since dropping that cylinder.
Looks like both cars, Jim, are holding their lines quite well, though. Nobody really seeming to drift. Holtzhausen a little bit looser in the turns, but not really too bad.
I believe Kevin knows how strong his car is. As long as he keeps it low, Holtzhausen has no chance.
Tip of the hat to both crew chiefs for setting their cars up for long green flag runs. There's that fight with Seneker and Miller. Still no changes there, and Roper holding on in 5th as they go around to the outside of Bill Barrett.
Third and fourth, the Bluebird and Mike Miller, one of the hottest drivers in ASA, coming off a victory from the pole last week in Minnesota. Miller, the Red 18, also was on the pole position this afternoon.
Miller with 2 victories and 2 poles. 9 lead lap finishes coming into the year. And he will add to his total of 6 top 5 finishes if he can hang on to this 4th position. Oh, and look at this now. The leader's trying to get around Reigns. Sawinski clears him. So does Holzhausen. But still, Kevin is unable to really pull away. That's Sidney Peterson and Rod Wheeler. Sidney goes to the inside. Now what will they do with Rod Wheeler? Wheeler in the 01 car has had a great run. He is listed at 12.
Outstanding run for Rod Wheeler. Weekly competitor here, has a handful of ASA starts, including earlier this year at Milwaukee. This is 3rd ASA start this season.
Well, we are 1 lap away from history being made on the AC-Delco Challenge Series. Never before has a rookie won 3 races in 1 year. And now we are about to see Kevin Sawinski accomplish that feat. He is just 2 turns away from making history on the AC-Delco Challenge Series. And Kevin Sawinski has won his 3rd ASA race of the 1996 season. Unbelievable. As the rest of the competitors come to the line, there is the Lefevre Racing Team. Mike Chaffee being congratulated by the
Benetti Motorsports.
Yeah. Steve Holzhausen.
Wow.
We'll be back to the Tournament of Speed to talk to a winner after this. Kevin Sawinski in a victory lane at an American Speed Association AC-Delco Challenge Series race is becoming a regular occurrence, and you can see that the fans here in Kaukauna love the driver of the Brown and Sharp #1. Let's go down to victory lane and Dave Burns.
How about got trampled here, Kevin, with all this celebrating? You made history here, buddy, 3 times in the 1996 season, and you're a rookie here. Good job.
Thanks. You know, we got a lot of laps around this place, and I'll tell you, this crew gave me a supercar all day long. We got a little bit behind when we took on some rear tires with, I think, 100 to go, and we come back in and took on right sides, and they just said, be patient, you got the car to beat, and they were right.
Tell me about that battle with Steve Holzhausen. You had a lot of opportunities to move him out of the way. You didn't do it. You raced him clean. You beat him fair.
Yeah, you know, me and Steve raced together. I bought a car when I first started out racing CWRA from Steve, and I know Steve for probably 10, 15 years now, and, you know, we got in a little skirmish there at Cedar Rapids early in the year. I know it was neither one of our faults. It was just a racing deal, and, you know, I knew he'd give me a lane if he could, and once I got up alongside of him, you know, he let me have some racing room, so it was just a fun race all the way around.
Okay, well, these guys will shake hands coming out of this one and meet again in 2 weeks in Cedar Rapids. That, of course, will be broadcast elsewhere, but Kevin Sawinski may again find himself up near the front, guys.
I wouldn't doubt it at all, David. Stay with us. We're going to come back to Wisconsin International Raceway. We've got plenty more for you from the American Speed Association at Kaukauna. Stay with us.
Congratulations to the entire House Lubricator Miracle Master Products Ford Thunderbird team of Steve.
The AC-Delco Challenge Series on Prime is brought to you in part by Win Oil Company, makers of quality automotive car care products. Remember, when it's wins, it works. And by your GM Goodrich service dealer. We want your business. Well, they're celebrating here at WIR as they get set to let the fans down into the pit area, as they always do at an ASA race. When the race is concluded, they'll all get a chance to go down there and meet the drivers, and you can be sure that as many fans as Kevin Sawinski has here at this racetrack, he'll be there for a long time. But Steve Holzhausen isn't going anywhere early either, is he, Dave?
No, and he's got the secret to coming away with a clean race car at the end of the race here, Steve. What was that?
Well, we ran out front most of the day, and that kept us out of the garbage, I'll tell you what. There was a lot of hard racing going on in the back, and I'm glad I didn't have to be there racing with them, but I got to thank House Lubricator for coming on with us, and I'll tell you what, this little black Thunderbird ran sweet all day. The tires stayed under it, and the pit crew was right with me all day.
All right, Steve Holzhausen, he's back to stay in ASA.
Well, that will shake some things up in the manufacturer standings as you look at Scott LaFavor down there with Kevin Sawinski and Miss Wins, Lisa Dickinson, because Ford got second and third here today.
They'll lead Pontiac by 3 points coming out of here. Ford will have 33, Pontiac 30, and Chevy 27 with the win here.
The Wins winning move is a big part of the post-race celebration at any ASA race because this is a coveted award, and I think one of the most deserving drivers of this all season long has been Tony Roper here today.
Hard luck driver a year ago and a very smart drive today as you see, Smokestead spinning, trying for third. Roper ends up fifth, and yeah, that was a close call. That was definitely a winning move to stay in the top 5 for Tony.
A great run for Tony Roper. He is the recipient of today's Wins winning move here at Wisconsin International Raceway. Great job, Tony. That crew continues to get closer and closer to finding that victory lane. Place these guys have found a lot. Stay with us. We're not done. So the Tournament of Speed 300 is concluded here. A great weekend of racing here at Wisconsin International Raceway. And the best saved for last. And Kevin Sawinski wins the American Speed Association's round here at Kaukauna. And he will continue to pick up points in the quest for more than just the Rookie of the Year title. Holzhausen, Seneca coming home in there. You will see as we go back through the top 20. Scott Hansen finishes 7th. We know that Gary St. Amant had an absolutely horrendous day, so there will be a change in the point standings. Once again, we've changed it just about every week.
We see that Dave Sensiba is 11th. Rod Wheeler, 12th. Awesome run for Rod. Tony Raines finishes 13th. He was 29 points out heading into this one. Yale Conley, a good run in 14th, and Joe Knott struggled and soldiered on for a 15th place finish.
Tip of the hat to Tony as well, doing that on just 5 cylinders. Dave Duran, you and your brother Kevin, nice tip of the hat to you guys too. We didn't get a chance to talk too much about them, even though we wanted to. I know we'll see them again. Dave Duran in his first ever ASA race with big-time tuning brother Kevin helping him out. Here's a quick look at the points. Scott Hansen leads it 2,372. He's 50 points in front of Tony Raines, 60 points in front of Gary St. Amant, who slips to 3rd. Bob Seneca is now 77 points back in 4th behind Scott Hansen, your new AC-Delco Challenge Series points leader. Well, for Dave Burns, my good buddy Jim Trado, and Bo Gray did a great job producing his first ever ASA race today. So long, everybody. We'll see you soon.